Why? I baseline hate him. You can't lie on the internet. It's me, I'm the problem. There's just a lot of men. People are foaming at the mouth over this book. Not my journey. I'm just gonna rip the band-aid off. Nope, I can't say that. That's too mean. No, I hated this one. Hi, I'm Sam. There's quite literally no one asking me to do this, but it's the end of the year, and I will not pass up an opportunity to roast the shit out of a bunch of books that I didn't like. So today I want to tell you about the worst books that I read this year. I know the word worst is like so dramatic, but they were disappointing to me. So these were like the worst / most disappointing books for me personally. Hey, listen, if any of these books I talk about are your all-time favorite books, I love that for you. I love that journey for you. It's just not the journey for me, okay? Okay, so there's no real order to this list. I kind of just put these in a random order. So the first book I'd like to discuss today is Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi, translated by Jeffrey Trusselot. This is about a cafe in Tokyo where customers can go back in time and revisit a small portion of their past, as long as that part of their past took place in the cafe. And the only stipulation is that they have to return to present day before their coffee gets cold. I usually love Japanese stories set in Japan by Japanese authors. I love coffee. So I would describe this as a cozy slice of life sci-fi Japanese story. It kind of just fell flat for me. It ended up just being pretty boring. It's almost like a collection of vignettes in that it's all of these different characters who are kind of acquainted or related or they know each other, and it's sort of like these individual characters who have their own personal reasons for wanting to go back in time. Yeah, I don't know, maybe I'm just not like a cozy person. I just remembered the dialogue and just everything feeling very boring. The characters fell really flat for me. But then, the story needs something else. If there's not plot, if there's not good characters, it needs to be like fantastic language that blew me away, but there really wasn't any of that. This was just very forgettable, and I didn't like it. Okay, next we have one that I know I'm gonna get a lot of heat for. I just know I am, but I can't lie to you. You can't lie on the internet. The God to honest truth is I read My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Otessa Moshfegh, and I didn't like it. I am an unhinged woman ally, okay? All women deserve to be unhinged. I love reading from the perspective of unhinged ladies, love to get into the mind of an unhinged female lead. So this book, on paper, should be a slam dunk for me. Yeah, I'm gonna love this. This is gonna have a coveted place on my shelf. This is about a really depressed young woman who is clearly very wealthy because she doesn't need to work to live in this like wonderful apartment in, I think, New York City. She's gorgeous. She has thin privilege. Basically, she has all the elements in life that, like, on paper she should be really happy, but like she isn't, which I'm not faulting her for that because like just depression things. I get it. I don't know. Anyway, so she basically like goes to this really weird psychiatrist who she convinces to just give her all these different medications so that she can just like drug herself into slumber. So like most of each day she's sleeping. I'm not saying Otessa Moshfegh isn't a great writer. She's clearly very talented. I just don't think it's for me. Again, the story was just pretty boring. This main character was unlikable in a boring way. People are foaming at the mouth over this book. Like literal rabies foam coming out of their mouths when they talk about this book. So I know there are going to be a lot of people in the comments really mad about this, but I guess, let's make this productive. Like, what did I miss? Because I really want to like Otessa Moshfegh. Again, I'm an ally, okay? I'm an unhinged lady ally. I want to be there with you guys, but I'm not. So like, what did I miss? If you read this and you really liked it, what did you really like about it? What did I miss? Because as it stands, I did not like this book. Okay, the next book I would like to tell you about is The Grip of It by Jac Jemc. This cover is a banger, okay? This was a blind buy, which again, I guess it's kind of partially my fault then. I don't know if it's just my Barnes & Noble, but my Barnes & Noble is kind of bad. The horror section leaves so much to be desired. I think I just saw this in the horror section from an author I hadn't heard of before. It was published by FSG, great cover, and it's a haunted house story. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna give this a try, like thank you Barnes & Noble for having having something that's not freaking Stephen King or Joe Hill. Again, this wasn't like totally awful, but it just was like boring. And I guess that's kind of a theme throughout all of this, because I think even if a book is like really weird or unexpected, I think that still has merit. But if it's just boring, I'm like, why? This is supposed to be my hobby. You're boring me. I did not really care for this book. I've not met or heard a single person who's like, you know what book I freaking loved this year? The Grip of It by Jac Jemc. It was boring. Okay, next we have another hot take. This has been on a lot of people's best books of 2022. So I'm just gonna rip the band-aid off. I read Notes on an Execution by Danya Kukafka, and I did not like it. It was so overhyped. People are just like dying on this hill that this is such an amazing book, like such a universally amazing book. And it's not. It was fine. This is about a man who is on death row. He killed a bunch of ladies, so like I baseline hate him. We follow his perspective and then the perspective of a couple different women who were part of his life at different stages of his life. I distinctly remember on the synopsis, it said something about like this book was going to challenge the idea that people get so obsessed with serial killers and they get so obsessed with getting inside the psyches of violent men, and they care more about like what made them this way versus like caring more about like the victims and their families. You know, everyone knows like Jeffrey Dahmer, Ed Gein, Ted Bundy, but like I couldn't really name a single victim of theirs necessarily, unless you're like a super big like true crime girly, which my sister is, so she's probably like dying right now that I'm saying that. But like I personally, as a layman, I don't know any of the victims. So I think that's an issue in our society. So I was going into this thinking like, okay, cool, that kind of hooked me. It's like, great, we're not going to focus so much on the shitty man. But then the book focused so much on the shitty man. And I'm just like, what is the truth, Danya Kukafka? Because clearly it's not what you wrote in the synopsis. I'm not a true crime girly, first of all. I'm not super interested in serial killers unless they're like in a fictional book that I'm reading and they're massacring people. And yeah, I feel like I was catfished by the synopsis. So for those three reasons, I'm out. Next, we have another one that was one that I was really highly anticipating this year, and that's why it's made it to this list. So that is the Doloriad by Missouri Williams. This one's kind of a tricky one because the cover's great. Well, the UK cover's great. You know, the synopsis was pretty interesting. You could just tell from the synopsis that it was going to be pretty vile. You know, some pretty gnarly things happening because this is a post-apocalyptic story. It's like many years in the future, and this small group of people survived the apocalypse, and they had to basically procreate among themselves to repopulate the human race. There's just a lot of people in this community who have a lot of genetic like birth defects. I think part of my issue with this is that this wasn't as accessible as I think it needed to be. There was so much of this that went over my head. You know, some people might be like, well, it's not my fault, you were too dumb to understand the story. But I don't know, I felt like I needed like a reading guide for this. The language really put a distance between the reader and the story. I can think of a single scene that was like probably supposed to be like really horrific and really disturbing. But just the way it was written, it was like, I feel like I had to focus so much on understanding what the words were saying. It's like it was distracting me from the story, I guess. Yeah, I didn't really like this one. No, I hated this one. This is the only book I gave 1 star this year. It was really bad. It made me feel dumb. Next, we have one that I think a lot of people also like, and this isn't really the fault of the book or the author necessarily. This was more my fault. I'm gonna accept the blame for this because I realized this year I think I'm just not a thriller girly. And you know what? I'm okay with that. What I read is Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. This was marketed as like a horror / thriller. Marketing it that way definitely did lend itself well to the story of like what's actually happening here. But for me, it's like I wanted it to go one way and then it went the other way. So again, it's a me problem. It's me, I'm the problem. I get it. But for those of you who don't know, this is about a woman who inherits the house that she lived in for a short time when she was a kid, and they had to leave it in the middle of the night, like in a rush, because it was purportedly haunted. And her dad wrote this whole book about like how they were haunted and they had to leave the house and everything. And it's basically like followed her whole life and she's hated it. So her plan is, I'm just gonna fix it up and sell it. But then when she gets there and starts trying to fix it up, strange things start happening. And basically she has to like uncover the mystery history of like what actually happened when she was a kid to try and figure out what the heck is going on now. He's just not for me, and this story was not for me either. Next is one that I also literally just finished last week, and this is one that I put on my December TBR with the express purpose that I wanted to get it done before the end of the year because I was so sure it was going to be on my best books of 2022. Clearly that's not the case. So that book is Stolen Tongues by Felix Blackwell. This was, wow. This was a tricky one because the first chapter was so good. I think if the first chapter had just been like a short story, that would have been amazing. I was so hooked from the first chapter and I was so creeped out, and yeah, I thought it was very effective. So I was like, cool, this is gonna be a bomb book just like I thought, because I'm always right. But then I was proven wrong because it was so dragged out. I feel like this needed to go through like several more rounds of editing to really sharpen up the story, because this had such good bones and then there were some like really glaring errors. This is about a couple who go to this cabin for like a romantic getaway. They basically think that there's like something outside, like something haunting them, and it seems like it's communicating with the wife while she's sleeping and like dreaming, and the wife is like whispering back in her sleep. So like that sounds really creepy. That sounds so like it could be really, really cool. But then yeah, it just kind of like, it just keeps going and going and going, and then there's just like not really a lot, like the story isn't really progressing. The author tried to jam in too many like action-packed, trying to be scary scenes. You weren't able to like come back down from a scare, and there wasn't any sense of like building the suspense. There wasn't really a feeling of payoff, and then you kind of just like got numb to it. You're just like, yeah, okay, the scary specter is outside again because of he hasn't ever left. Like, yeah, of course he's still there. It lost its luster, you know? So this is pretty heavily based on indigenous folklore, and there are several indigenous characters in this story. Ooh, why is a white man telling an indigenous story? That kind of like immediately just was a red flag to me as soon as I saw like how the native characters were constructed. I again was just like, why is this happening? There's this like author's note at the back of the book where Felix Blackwell is like, I really wanted to write this because I wanted to show that like Native American characters are people too. And it's like, bro, no shit. I don't know. It kind of just seemed like he was like, I'm putting this author's note in the back to excuse myself of any harm that I might be doing as a result of writing this book. It came across as like very tone deaf. This just wasn't good. It wasn't good. I wouldn't read this one if I were you. Okay guys, we got another one that is beloved. This is a beloved title, and I did not enjoy it, and that is The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. Again, I'm gonna partially take blame for this. We already heard that I discovered about myself this year that I'm not a thriller girly. So this was before my realization, but I think this was also like a book that really helped me to realize maybe this genre just isn't for me. I have friends in real life who have really enjoyed this. Everyone on the internet seems to enjoy this. But I would say my biggest pet peeve with thrillers, and not to be like, I'm so smart, but like sometimes I am, and it bugs me to no end when I'm reading a thriller and I can just like immediately guess the ending. Like if they haven't buried the lead well enough, and that's exactly what happened here. Basically there was a point in the book where it's like boop, boop, boop. And in my brain, I was like, oh, obviously this. And then we get to the end and it's like, yeah, okay. There's no thrill. The thrill has been taken out of the thriller, and I'm literally just waiting for whatever I have anticipated to happen to happen. This book helped me learn that I'm not a thriller girly. If you are, again, love that for you. Love your journey, not my journey. Next is a book that I read in January, and that is Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Khaw. This is another like haunted house story about a group of friends who go to this purportedly haunted Japanese mansion to celebrate a couple of their friends' wedding. All of the characters in this are objectively awful people. So I think that was kind of hard too. There wasn't like any room to breathe. They were all like 50 shades of f***ed up. It was hard to root for them, but then it's not like they were awful enough where you were like rooting for the villain, I guess, or like you were rooting for them to die. It was just kind of like, you're awful. in an I don't care way. I don't think that Cassandra Khaw is a bad writer. The language was just a little overwrought. It detracted from the story because I had to reread sentences a couple times to be like, what the heck is that sentence even trying to say? It took me out of the immersion of the haunted house. This isn't my last time reading them because I can tell that they are a very gifted writer, but this just wasn't it for me. Okay, last is another one I just read and I had such high hopes for because a book by this author is literally on my best books of 2022. So I was like, this is gonna be a dribble slam dunk, like a slam dunk. And it wasn't. It was a swing and a miss. I don't know why I'm doing all these sports analogies. I'm not even really that big of a sports person. But anyway, I read Krampus by Brom and I didn't like it. Listen, I am a Krampus girly. Okay, look at this. This is a custom-made Krampus man made out of pipe cleaners. I love Krampus. But what I don't love is this book. So this is about a guy who gets like roped into saving Krampus and killing Santa. Because in this universe, Santa is the villain, which that sounds amazing. But my issues were, the main character is this just like boring white guy who is sort of that like deadbeat dad trope who can't get his life together. And he's running with these drug dealers to try to make ends meet. And there's just a lot of men in this story. They're just like not well written, either like himbos or like threatening to kill women. I don't need any more of that in my life. Or they're like making these like circa 2007 homophobic jokes. It wasn't for me. I really didn't like the characters. Even the Krampus character was not likable. And you know, he's supposed to be the one that you are rooting for. Yeah, I cannot think of a single character in this that I liked. And you know, I usually love the villains. I love messed up, complicated characters. But these were all just like boring people. Yeah, and then the ending was just kind of like, kind of a cop-out. I was very, very underwhelmed by this compared to the other book by Brom, which is on my best books of 2022. You might be able to infer which one it is, but Krampus was not for me, sorry to say. So that is my list of the worst books I read this year. Again, if you disagree with any of these that I've put on my list, let me know why. Obviously, we can have a respectful discourse in the comments. I'm also working on my best books of 2022, and I also, because I'm a masochist, think it would be really fun to tier rank every single book that I read in 2022. I think I'm gonna have a lot of regrets while I'm making it and while I'm editing it, but after, I think it's gonna be worth it because I think it's gonna be equal parts chaotic and entertaining. So with that being said, thank you so much for being here. Watch my other videos if you want, like this video, comment, subscribe if you want. Would love to have ya. And look forward to all those exciting end of year vids. I appreciate you guys so much. I love you so much. Goodbye.